selection-wise, manager, as always, has a few kind of things to think about. What do you think that kind of back four looks like on Saturday afternoon?
I'd go Bradley at right back, 2 centre-halves, and I'd go Kirkes. I would. I've got all the time in the world for the guy greatest ever left back, and I can see why he would justify playing in a game like that. But I think Kirkes is showing flashes of his discipline in the team, what he can bring to the team. And if there are going to be any overloads about Palace going narrow or whatever, then this lad, we bought this lad for a reason. And he's a flying machine down that left-hand side, and maybe that's the, when you're playing against a team that's difficult to break down, you need someone who's going to be able to do something that's a little bit outside the box, and he can't half get out on the outside of that. I don't like the idea of away from home playing against a tough team, playing Kirkes on one side and Frimpong on the other. I just don't like the physicality of that. I might be wrong, but it doesn't feel right to me. But I think that back four, I'd be very happy with that.
Paul, I don't think it's controversial to say the best right back this season has been Dominic Szoboszlai.
That's my right back.
It would not surprise me if the manager's thinking about, well, I want to play Wirtz, I want to play Gravenberch, I want to play McAllister. If he does think about those three, then it might mean that Dom Szoboszlai plays right back again.
That's what I'm expecting. If I'm honest, I think there's a couple of considerations. Obviously, height, energy. If you are on the ball, the ability to maybe invert Szoboszlai and try and overload the midfield a little bit. I could see Szoboszlai. I could also see Bradley in Liverpool just sort of try and match Palace up a little bit and whatever. But
would Frimpong be the shock? Would you think he'd be maybe third on your list of right backs this weekend?
It wouldn't be a shock because obviously what Neil said earlier, I think the manager likes to play what he thinks is his best team, and I currently think in the manager's building of the team, I think his best team probably features Frimpong. I'm not sure if he's quite there yet, but I think he's been bought to be the first choice right back. I think we've almost stumbled across something with Dom Szoboszlai where you go, oh, actually, you can do a lot of the things Trent did, and that also helps manage the evolution of the Liverpool team by giving something stylistically that's very similar to what we've been doing in the past. But as I said something earlier off camera, which I think is something to maybe keep an eye on, as I thought against Everton at the weekend, it was really interesting for me that at Goodison Park, Van Dijk has a horrendous time with Beto, and for the first time maybe in his Liverpool career I've seen Van Dijk be the second man, not the one who goes and challenges the ball. It'd be interesting to see with Mateta, and obviously the centre forward has a choice of where he positions himself, but it was Kanate, the centre half, who was going to the man, and Van Dijk was almost the sweeper. And it'd be interesting to see if that's how they do things again this weekend, whether that was with Beto in mind or with a similar style of centre forwards, because there's a lot of comparison with Mateta and Beto. Like, they like to back in, they're good at holding the ball up, they're powerful. Mateta, I think, is a better player, so it's an even bigger challenge. Kirkes, I'm with Cav, I would do that, but I think if I was giving it the nod now, I'd do Szoboszlai right back, definitely.
McAllister, Cav, he's had an interesting start to the season. You know, people will keep saying, doesn't look fit. But the manager, doesn't look fit. Manager keeps playing him though. So is it a case of, is the manager trying to get him to work his way back to something, or is there a little bit more to it where maybe there's a lack of fitness, but maybe there's also just a little bit of poor form in there as well? Would you start him this weekend?
I wouldn't, and I think the world of him. He's not quite at it, but we've got to play Isak in, and we've got to play Wirtz in. How many are we going to be playing in a game like this against a team of no mugs? So I just think for that reason. So you're right, Dominic Szoboszlai's been the best player we've had this season, and he's played a number of positions. But I think at this point in time, given the fact that McAllister's not up to what we know it's going to come back. But personally, I would be looking at that and saying, Ryan, Dominic, and if we're going to play Wirtz into this position, and we need to, and he needs to play these games, and he needs to be there, that's where I'd be going. Now, it would be a different kettle of fish if we knew McAllister was up to his standards. Then I'd have a different conversation. But right here, right now, the game tomorrow, that's my three.
See, I'm looking for something different in the midfield. I'm not sure it's I think you're going to get Szoboszlai's energy in any position he plays. But I think if it gets a bit horrible in the midfield, I think Jones is the one that could just keep things calm and dig it out. And I think he's had an alright start. I thought the other day he was okay in patches as well, Jones. And I would have Jones, Gravenberch and Gravenberch and Wirtz as the three there, and obviously when you're on the ball, try and get Szoboszlai as involved as possible. And although Cav's right, I think at some stage in the game you want to see a flying version of Kirk, as I've also seen the manager put the brakes on him a little bit as well in some games where you don't have to go all the time. You know, maybe let the right hand side go and you just almost act as a three with Konate and Van Dijk, and that's maybe the trade-off I would make if you want to get more Szoboszlai further up the pitch and more involved in the action when we're on the ball. I would have Jones in the midfield as well. I think McAllister's one for the bench personally.
Neil, I want to talk to you about Gakpo briefly. You know, you mentioned before he'll start. I think he definitely will. Doesn't feature at all midweek. When you talk about footballers and you critique them a little bit, people think that you don't rate them. I rate Gakpo. I think he's a very, very good player. But I also feel that he's not quite at the level at the minute, and I would like to see a little bit more. And I'd like to see a little bit more in the context of just being a bit bigger in away games, especially, because I take his record last season. He's 18 goals, he's 10 in the league. 9 of those league goals come at Anfield. There's too many away games for me, and it might change this weekend, especially now I'm saying this, but there's too many away games where sometimes it just passes him by a little bit. I'd like to see a Gakpo that just almost stands a little bit taller and takes control and maybe has a bit more variety in his game. Is that fair, or am I being a little bit harsh?
And that's fair, but I think there's a little thing where he's been playing a little bit deeper. So his starting position, both in and out of possession's just been a little bit deeper, because I think they're sort of allowing for where Wirtz is going to play. Salah still remains being Salah, so there's got to be some compromise somewhere. And everyone wondered when Wirtz came in, and with Isak or Ekitike at number 9, where the compromise will be. Well, I think if you look at the work rate you've seen from both Isak and Ekitike so far, that's the work rate you saw last season from Diaz, Nunez and Jota. That work rate hasn't shifted. But what you saw last season was that it felt like the number 10 was offering the idea that the both wide players can do a little bit less, because the work will come through the middle of the pitch. And I think that Gakpo's been dropped a little bit deeper, and this game probably doesn't suit the idea of breaking that, because Munoz is their most dangerous player. Yeah. And he could end up being the man who's detailed with that. So I think it's a little bit tricky for him at the minute, but I also agree he's got to impose himself a bit more. You know, this, like I just said before, but with Mateta, you know, footballer, you get to say, you're not knocking me out of this game today, thank you very much. I'm making myself available and I'm showing here. So I think that everyone will want a bit more from him. I think it is reasonable to say that. And the away goal thing, listen, if we're aware of it, those lads, especially goal scorers, they're aware of it. You know, so I think my worry with that is almost, does it begin to play on his mind? All of that said, listen, you know, I think he should start. I think he will start. I think if he can do the job of occupying the life when it goes the other way, out of Munoz, out of Richards, and maybe even out of whether it's Hughes or Wharton who plays that side, if he can just occupy that space, and maybe it does liberate Kirkes to have a big moment that we've been talking about. Maybe it does help if it's Jones or McAllister or Szoboszlai, whichever one of those three it is, to feel as though he can impose a little bit more. Or, you know, the obvious ones are Wirtz or the number 9. For me, this is the game Liverpool. This and some Champions League games are the games that Liverpool have bought Florian Wirtz for.